Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Torah for Dummies by Arthur Kurzweil, narrated by Stephen J. Cohen. Limit of liability, disclaimer of warranty. The publisher and the author make no representations or warranties with respect to the accuracy or completeness of the contents of this work, and specifically disclaim all warranties, including without limitation warranties of fitness for a particular purpose. No warranty may be created or extended by sales or promotional materials. The advice and strategies contained herein may not be suitable for every situation. This work is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If professional assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. Neither the publisher nor the author shall be liable for damages arising herefrom. The fact that an organization or website is referred to in this work as a citation and or a potential source of further information does not mean that the author or the publisher endorse the information the organization or website may provide or recommendations it may make. Further, readers should be aware that Internet websites listed in this work may have changed or disappeared between when this work was written and when it is read. Introduction. The Torah is both the most sacred object and the most sacred text in Judaism. It consists of the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The word Torah comes from the same root as the Hebrew word hora'ah, which means instruction or teaching. The Torah's purpose, simply stated, is to provide people with instructions for finding and following the path of God and the path to God. Although the words in the Torah, which is also known as the 5 books of Moses, consists of exactly 304,805 letters, the great sages of Jewish tradition teach that all the wisdom in the universe is hidden within these letters. Jewish tradition looks carefully at these letters and at the words they form, and great sages throughout history have provided and continue to provide the proper instruction for analyzing the Torah text and revealing its divine messages. As my teacher, the renowned Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz of Jerusalem, has said, other religions have a concept of Scripture as deriving from heaven, but only Judaism seems to be based on the idea that the Torah Scripture is itself heaven. In other words, the Torah of the Jews is the essence of divine revelation. It is not only a basis for social, political, and religious life, but is something of supreme value. When you study the Torah, you aren't just studying the Word of God. According to Jewish belief, Torah study is actually an authentic encounter with God. The Torah can be viewed as a collection of concentrated emanations and transmutations of divine wisdom. I'm a Jew who studies the Torah in one form or another every day. I've been studying the Torah for nearly 40 years, and I've come to believe that the Torah is the most profound collection of wisdom and guidance I've ever encountered. About this book. It's essential to know that you can't understand the 5 books of Moses simply by reading it like a storybook. A core belief among the Jewish people is that when Moses encountered God on Mount Sinai and received the Torah, he actually received 2 Torahs, one written and one oral. The 2 parts together make up what the Jewish people consider to be the Torah. The relationship between the written Torah and the oral Torah has often been compared to the relationship between the United States Constitution on the one hand, and both federal and state legislation, as well as the decisions of the Supreme Court on the other hand. The written Constitution contains basic principles, but it's the legislation and court decisions that expand upon these principles and give them life. Jewish tradition teaches that the oral Torah works in much the same way, expanding upon the basic written principles of the 5 books of Moses. These basic principles are constantly being applied to new situations as human history unfolds. In the Torah for Dummies, I explain how both aspects of the Torah work together to form an operating manual for life. Like all For Dummies books, you don't need to listen to the Torah for Dummies from start to finish. Each chapter is self-contained. I've constructed each section so that you can skip through the book, find something of interest, and listen to it without needing to know what the other chapters say. I've written this book in plain, down-to-earth language, and if I need to mention an essential technical or foreign word or phrase, I make sure to define it the first time I use it. Even though the Torah is deep and profound, Jewish tradition teaches that the Torah is written in the language of humans and is meant to be accessible and understandable. I've made sure that my explanations and descriptions of the Torah and its contents resulted in a plain language reference book that will serve you well, even if you have had absolutely no prior experience or familiarity with the Torah. My goal in writing the Torah for Dummies is to introduce you to the Torah, its structure, its contents, and its significance in Jewish life. I also want you to understand how the ideas in the Torah provide the basis of Western civilization and the foundations of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Conventions used in this book. Because the Torah is a vast subject with so many parts, qualities, aspects, and subjects, I had to establish a few conventions while writing to make the subject as clear and understandable as possible. As you listen to the Torah for Dummies, please keep in mind my conventions regarding the following. The word Torah. Don't jump too quickly to define the word Torah. It has abstract connotations as well as very specific usages. For the most part, when I use the word in this book, I'm referring to the 5 books of Moses. But as you will find out, Torah also refers to the oral tradition that has been passed down from generation to generation ever since Moses encountered God at Mount Sinai. In addition, the word Torah refers to the entire body of Jewish teachings. References to God. Although the 5 books of Moses refer to God using male pronouns like he and him, in principle God has no gender and is beyond anything the human mind can grasp on any level. Occasionally I refer to God using male pronouns for simplicity's sake, but I try to avoid this as much as possible. Pronunciation of Hebrew words. Many Hebrew words and phrases appear throughout this book. You should be aware that there are 2 ways to pronounce many Hebrew words. Ashkenazic. This is the Central and Eastern European pronunciation that's used in most but not all Orthodox synagogues. An example is Shabbos, Sabbath, with the accent on the first syllable. Sephardic. This is the modern Israeli pronunciation that's used in most liberal synagogues and some Orthodox synagogues in the United States. An example is Shabbat, Sabbath, with the accent on the second syllable. In this book, I mostly use the transliteration and pronunciation commonly used in Israel, but sometimes I give the Ashkenazic pronunciation, especially if it has become common usage. The names of the 5 books of Moses. I use the common names for each of the 5 books of Moses. For example, the first book, Genesis, is actually called Bereshit in Hebrew, and in Jewish tradition, Even though I would love for you to know the real names of each book, I've come to the conclusion that using the common names is more useful, especially for a beginner. Sages, commentators, and rabbis. Throughout this book, I use these terms interchangeably. The term sage is a common one in Jewish life and generally refers to any highly regarded Torah teacher. By definition, someone whose commentaries on the Torah have come to be accepted among traditional Jews throughout history is known as a sage. Occasionally, I refer to the rabbis. What I mean by that isn't simply anyone who happens to be a rabbi, but rather those rabbis who have earned reputations as luminaries among the Jewish people. English translations of verses from the Torah. The Torah is written in Hebrew. The English translations appearing in this book are mine, but I want you to know that I'm quite familiar with all the available English translations of the Torah and have often borrowed phrases from them. Generally, my translations are composites of all the available English translations, as well as my own translations, and my decisions are based on my judgments as to what's the clearest and most understandable language to modern English-speaking readers. Jewish observance. This book is not a guide to Jewish religious observance. If you're interested in following the teachings of the Torah, there are many books available specifically to help you with that. The best way to learn how to live a religious Jewish life is to find a qualified rabbi or teacher who can direct you in the process of learning the way of the Torah. Foolish assumptions. When writing this book, I had to make some assumptions about you. First of all, I don't assume that you're Jewish, nor do I assume that you want to be. And although the Torah is just as much about spiritual practice as it is about general spiritual ideas, I don't assume that you want to adopt every practice, custom, and ritual, nor do I assume that you necessarily agree with all the theological assumptions found in the Torah. Following are some additional assumptions I've made. If you fit into any of these categories, this book is for you. You've heard about the Torah and are curious about it because you know that it's the central book and foundation of Judaism. You know that both Christianity and Islam have their roots in Judaism and the Torah, and you're interested in understanding those roots. You have some familiarity with the Bible and know some of its contents, like Noah's Ark and the Ten Commandments, but you still want more. You're a spiritual seeker and you've heard that the Torah is the cornerstone of the Jewish path and the hiding place of all the secrets of Kabbalah. You're Jewish but realize that you never received a good Jewish education, or you want to supplement, enrich, broaden, and expand your Jewish knowledge. You're not Jewish, but you'd like to understand more about Jewish life, including that of your Jewish friends and neighbors. You've attended a synagogue service and have witnessed the reverence that the Jewish people give to the Torah, and you'd like to know more about it. You've seen popular films like The Ten Commandments and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're curious about the contexts of those films. You've seen a lot of Christian preachers on television, quoting from and explaining the Torah from their points of view, but you'd like to know how Judaism understands its holy book. How this book is organized. I've organized this book so that you can skip around easily. In order to help you get in, get the information you need, and get out without listening start to finish, I divided the book into parts that give you one piece of the Torah picture at a time. Part 1. The Torah 101. This part provides you with the basics. You get an overview of the entire subject, in particular the major sections of the Torah, as well as some of its most important ideas and concepts. I introduce the main character of the Torah, God. There's a lot to say about God, even though by definition it's impossible for humans to grasp God. But once you understand the paradox that the Torah expects you to establish an intimate personal relationship with a God whom you can't conceive of, you begin to understand that God is the basis of everything. And because the Torah is often profoundly misunderstood, I also explore what the Torah isn't in this part. Part 2. One by One. The Books of the Torah. The 5 books of Moses consist of, 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. In this part, I walk you through each of the 5 books, one by one, summarizing the major events and concepts appearing in each. After listening to each chapter in this part, you should have a pretty good idea of the book's contents, from stories you didn't know of to ones that sound familiar, like the splitting of the Red Sea or the giving of the 10 Commandments. I'll warn you now that you may end up saying to yourself, "Oh, so that's where that comes from." Part 3. The Torah, an operating manual for planet Earth. Even though the Torah has a lot to say about spiritual topics like God, faith, good and evil, and angels, it's a book of action. Its emphasis is on the world in which people live and function. In this part, I show you how the Torah concerns itself with personal behavior, like honoring parents, giving charity, treating animals with kindness, and just about every personal human activity. I also show you how the Torah has an equal concern for behavior in communal affairs, like the court system, employee-employer relations, and property rights. Part 4. The Importance of the Torah in Judaism. The Torah scroll is the most sacred object in Jewish life. In this part, I show you how the contents of the Torah form the basis for Jewish holy days and Jewish customs and practices, like eating kosher food, and the way in which the Torah scroll is used during synagogue services. According to Jewish tradition, every Jewish person must either write a Torah scroll or support those who do. So in this part, I provide you with the details of how a Torah scroll is written. Finally, every Jewish person is required to study the Torah, so I describe just how this is done and provide you with some suggestions if you want to participate in the study of the Torah. Part 5. The Part of Tens. Every For Dummies book has a part of tens. One natural list of 10 items relating to the Torah is the 10 Commandments. But it's not so simple. Not only are there 2 versions of the 10 Commandments in the Torah, but different groups of Christians even count them differently. Another group of 10 that I give you in this part is 10 famous and often misunderstood quotations from the Torah, many of which you'll know. Part 6. Appendices. In this part, I include a glossary of terms that you should know for a basic vocabulary about the Torah. And last but not least, I give you a list of the 613 commandments found in the Torah, broken down into positive commandments, what you should do, and negative commandments, what you shouldn't do. Icons used in this book. All For Dummies books feature icons. You will hear them verbalized in this audiobook. Think of them as road signs pointing to different kinds of information in the chapters. From my teacher. This icon alerts you to ideas and concepts that my Torah teachers have given me over the years. Remember. This icon alerts you to concepts, terms, and ideas in the Torah that are of particular importance. Keep the points marked with this icon in mind, and you can't go wrong. Tip. This icon points out helpful information that you can use if you make the Torah a part of your life. Warning. This icon points to misconceptions about the Torah or actions that are strictly forbidden by the Torah. Read this information carefully. Words of wisdom. This icon highlights instances when I quote directly from the Torah or some other important Jewish source, often from some of the great sages of Jewish history. Where to go from here? You can begin this book wherever you like, but you may want to start with the following suggestions. If you are interested in all 613 commandments in the Torah, go to Appendixes B and C. If you want to get a good overview of each of the 5 books of Moses, listen to Part 2. If you want to put the Torah's basic principles into practice immediately, listen to chapters 9 and 10. No matter where you start, I can't deny that I'm excited for you. The Torah is awesome. There's a blessing that Jews have said for centuries before studying the Torah as a way of offering thanks to God. The blessing is this: Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and has commanded us to get involved with the words of the Torah. This blessing doesn't require you to obey the Torah, believe in the Torah, or follow the Torah. It simply says to get involved with its words. I hope you do. Part 1. The Torah 101. In this part, even though you can begin listening to any chapter in this book first, you may want to get some of the basics under your belt. In this part, I cover some of the fundamental elements found in the Torah itself, such as its setup and laws. I also give you a quick overview of the contents of the 5 books of Moses. Perhaps most importantly, I devote an entire chapter to God, who is the ultimate author of the Torah. In fact, God is the author of the universe and everything that exists. Chapter 1. Beginning with Torah Basics. In this chapter, meeting the Torah's author, God. Discovering the most important elements of the Torah. Glimpsing each of the 5 books of Moses. Understanding how to live a righteous life according to the Torah. Seeing how the Torah guides the lives of the Jewish people. The Torah, also known as the 5 books of Moses, is the most sacred object and the most important text of the Jewish people. As a sacred scroll found in every synagogue throughout the world, it's referred to as a Sefer Torah, Torah scroll. As a bound book, it's referred to as a Chumash, 5. The Torah is more important than a text, though. It's also the spiritual tradition of the Jewish people, communicated by God, the Creator and Master of the universe, to Moses, the greatest prophet of the Jewish people, on Mount Sinai in 1280 BCE, and handed down from generation to generation. You can understand the word Torah in a third way as well. Torah is the vast and constantly growing body of teachings and wisdom of Judaism, and in this sense, it even includes what a qualified Jewish teacher will teach tomorrow. The study of Torah is not necessarily the same as the study of the Torah. The Torah usually means the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, whereas Torah is Torah studies in the more general sense. In this chapter, I introduce you to various aspects of the Torah, such as its structure, teachings, and study. I invite you to explore this chapter and discover some basics about this unique document of documents that has taught the world about charity, love, the importance of educating children, honesty in the marketplace, the concepts of bankruptcy, courts, and witnesses, and so many other aspects of modern experience that are embedded into the fabric of our lives. Introducing God, the Torah's author. Even though the Torah is mainly about God, it's also important to remember that the Torah's author is God. Although the first line of the Torah says, "In the beginning of God's creation of heaven and earth," it's God who is speaking. God chose Moses to receive and write down a divine message, which is why the Torah is also known as the 5 books of Moses. But the Torah emanates from God. God reaches into the human world with the Torah. Jewish tradition teaches that God didn't create the world out of nothing. God's creation is an emanation of divine light that God sculpted into all that exists. God is not just in everything. Rather, everything is God. This is, of course, a paradox. On the one hand, people live their lives feeling separate from God, but at the same time, Jewish tradition teaches that on the deepest level, everything is God. Remember, in studying the Torah, you'll often encounter paradoxes. Many spiritual teachers teach that when you encounter a paradox, it usually means that you're going in the right direction. The endless struggle to grasp and understand what is meant by God is both the most important activity of life and, at the same time, an impossible task. The study of Torah is the way in which Jews participate in this paradoxical struggle. Some of the ideas that students of the Torah struggle with include: humans are created in God's image. God has many names, but no name can possibly be adequate. God exists. God has no gender. God is unique. Nothing is like God in any way. God is everywhere. God is, was, and will be. God transcends time. God is beyond human comprehension. The Torah is mainly God's communication to people about how to behave. Most of the Torah is directed toward the Jewish people, although it also contains instructions for all other peoples of the world. But for reasons that only God knows, the Jewish people are given extra burdens and responsibilities. God chose the Jewish people, but in no way does this status of being chosen by God imply superiority. People have responsibilities to God and to each other, and the Torah is filled with instructions about how to fulfill both. Regarding a person's relationship to God, the Torah stresses connecting with God through God's commandments, having faith in God, maintaining trust in God, accepting direction from God, understanding that God directs everything that occurs, struggling to comprehend God, communicating with God through prayer. Listen to Chapter 2 for more information about God, the ultimate author. Examining the Torah's important elements. Remember, Jewish tradition maintains that the 5 books of Moses contains everything. Yes, everything. Although the Torah is a religious document, it isn't a collection of abstractions in spiritual language. Rather, it uses concrete descriptions in the form of laws and stories to express abstract notions. The Torah also deals with all aspects of life, from business, agriculture, and industry to family life, sexuality, and ritual. The Torah directs human conduct in all aspects. It urges followers to see the whole world as a holy temple in which each student functions as a priest whose job it is to constantly purify and sanctify the entirety of life. The Torah consists of 2 parts. One is written, and the other is oral. Skip to Chapter 3 for a full introduction to the treasures of the Torah. The written Torah.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?